I have a to-be list that I write every day because it reminds me to show up to, how do I want to be grateful and I want to be present
Mm.
and I want to be curious and joyful and those things.
Welcome back to the Push Pause to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Emily Rodersheimer. On this podcast, we explore health from the inside out, starting with the foundations, connection, and the conditions that allow the body to heal. Today's very special guest is Kate Miller. Kate is an elementary principal with over 20 years in education and a lifelong passion for helping others grow. She holds a bachelor's degree in early childhood education and a master's degree in educational administration. She's been married for 20 years and the proud mom of 3 amazing kids. Kate believes that true leadership begins with serving others. She is currently completing her certification as an intrinsic health coach, combining her love of education with her passion for health, wellness, and personal growth. Grounded in her faith, Kate enjoys exercising, reading, spending time with family and friends, and recharging at both the beach and in the mountains. Her mission is to encourage and equip others to become the healthiest, strongest versions of themselves, mind, body, and spirit. Welcome, Kate. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you, Dr. Emily. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone who's more inspirational, or I think you're living your truth. Let's just put it that way, with what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So
Oh, thank you. I'm definitely
you're so as an elementary principal, you've seen hundreds of families walk into a new school year, and here we are coming up on a new school year, and things have changed over the 20 years you've been doing this. So I would love to know, what do you notice about this season, and not just for kids, but for parents, teachers, maybe even the changes that you've seen over the years?
Yeah, for sure. Yes, in 20 years, there have been a lot of changes. That's for sure. And we can kind of talk through that as we're talking. But I think it's funny, actually, this time of year. I actually was in Target the other day, and it's like the aisles, literally. You have like floaties and beach stuff still, and then it's all the back to school stuff. And it's like that point when you feel like you're living in between like two seasons when you're like,
Yes.
oh, just the summer, the relaxation, the fun, and then like, oh, here we go.
Yeah, like the dichotomy of it is pretty harsh.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. And so I think that comes with a lot of excitement, but also, there's some fear in getting back into things too. So just welcoming all those feelings and um yeah, just being excited and ready for it.
Yeah,
Um
yeah. And can you tell us a little bit about, let's talk about those back to school nerves for a little
yeah,
while.
yeah.
And I have a couple questions sort of broken down, like for parents, for kids, and for teachers. So for the parents, a lot of parents are carrying their own anxiety about this time of year. I know I always feel like I honestly kind of despise this time of year. I hate the abrupt transition, as you mentioned, and the I hold some anxiety about how are the kids going to do, and mine are even older. But what are some of the ways that we can help our children navigate their back to school nerves without unintentionally passing on our own anxieties to them?
Right, for sure. I think there's a lot of things that people can do, and I think that one thing for me for sure is, and I learned this from you, is I think as humans we are just exhausted, right? We're over connected in technology, whether it's emails and social media and video games for kiddos, all of
The
those things,
news.
the
Yeah.
news, yes. Um, and so just really reminding ourselves to get back to that connection with ourselves, and with other people, and remind, ourselves that we are human beings, not human doings. You have helped me so much in reminding, me that. But I think like a lot of people, you wake up every morning and you ask yourself, okay, what's on my to-do list today? Especially this back to school time, right? Like school supplies and this and this and that.
Yes.
And I think what helps me the most and what I encourage parents, teachers, everyone to do is wake up and ask yourself, who do I want to be? Um, I think that just immediately just calms your nerves in your body. And how do you want to show up today? I even created, it's actually on my desk. I have a to do at a glance, and Yes, my to-do list is longer, but I have a to-be list that I write every day, because it reminds me to show up to, how do I want to be grateful, and I want to be present,
Mm.
and I want to be curious and joyful and those things. And, sometimes like busy moms and people, you add to your to-do list instead of check things off, right?
Yes,
Sometimes. But if at the end of the day, I can check off the to-be list, that's so gratifying.
I
And
love that.
so I think too, in this busy season of getting back, making sure that you're also adding that to be, because if you're present with your kiddos, um, if you're present for yourself, if you're finding gratitude, that just also eases that transition for everyone.
I love that so much because truthfully, that checking off the to be list is going to be in the long run much more important in life than checking off our to do list. And I would imagine if you are in the being of what you are hoping to be, then the to do list goes a little more smoothly and it's just not, takes a little of the pressure out, it feels like.
Yeah, it really does. And it makes, you can find the gratitude in it.
Yeah.
I always tell my teachers, sometimes when you have to do something, just change that one word to I get
Yes. Me
to. And
too. I
it's
love that.
it's like it just literally changes your brain and how you think about it. And sometimes it's funny to giggle about it. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I get to go out in the backyard and clean up the dog poo.
Yeah. Not what most people would say, but truthfully, like yes, that is actually a privilege because some people don't have a yard or a dog or and some people are yeah. So we're so blessed to get to do some of these things that have become kind of a heavy chore. Yeah, for me it's like all the charting, like and the paperwork.
Oh.
I'm like, "Oh, nope, I get to. I have this lovely job that allows me to, have this
Writing
opportunity."
people
So,
love notes.
yeah.
They
I
can
love it.
read all
I
that.
love it. You're so great at those mindset switches, which is what I just love that because in that one moment of swapping the I have to I get to, you just change the entire day.
Yeah,
Like
you do.
something that small is so powerful.
Yes.
I am as you shared with us your list. So if you're not watching on YouTube, Kate held up a list of she's got like a to do list column and a to be list column on like is it like a tear off sheet?
Yeah, I created it on Canva. It's like a tear off.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I was thinking somebody's going to ask where do you get that? So you created your own. That's awesome.
And I can also share it. I can give it to you and you can link it in if you can do that.
Oh my gosh. I think that would be a big win for a
Yes,
lot of us. But thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
absolutely.
Yeah, well, okay. So we talked about the parents and kind of what they could do. So for kiddos, what are some signs maybe that a child is struggling with the transition, even if they can't quite put it into words or say it out loud?
Yeah, sometimes I always say behavior is communication. That is something our
Mm.
teachers are really good
Oh, I love that.
looking for. And so you might see kiddos becoming more anxious. You might see them, behaviors kind of ramp up. Or you can see them a little bit more quiet and reserved. So really just kind of pay attention. Like, is this typical for my
Mm.
kiddo? Or, oh my gosh, like, why are you having more behaviors? And again, they might not know why,
Yeah.
um, because that prefrontal cortex of their brain, isn't fully formed. But also, when you have that anxiety or that fear, our brains are always searching, as you know, am I safe? And not
Yes.
just physically, but emotionally. And so then you can get that amygdala hijack. And where it's hard to problem solve, and then you might see a tantrum or a meltdown, or mommy, I'm nervous, or I'm afraid to go to school.
Yeah.
um, and I've been guilty of this, just like probably a lot of parents. We want to be like, oh, it's fine. It'll be fun, and just be positive, which is great. But there is so much power in validation and just validating
Yeah.
their feelings, or if they're having a behavior, leaning into it. Like I always say, be curious, not judgmental. Get curious about, oh, why I see you have really big feelings right now. Can you talk to me about, what that's feeling
Yeah.
like, and just validate, like, I know, what, I know that this is going to be different, and then this is a change. And just sit with them in that moment, because
Yeah.
even if you don't agree with maybe what they're nervous about, validation is an agreement. It's just
Yeah.
really saying, I'm here for you. Um, if you have kids too, because we do have kiddos that, start to get really panicky. I
Mm-hmm.
just love like we call it the 5 4 3 2 1 grounding exercises. So you can just, I typically like to go outside. It's beautiful outside. But I've had to do this with my youngest one. He will have gotten so overwhelmed because there's so many, things that their little brains are like thinking of. And what if this? And what if I don't have friends in my class? And what if my teacher isn't nice? And what if I get lost? And all those little things. And I'll just say, hey, let's sit outside for a minute and tell me 5 things that you can hear. And then it makes you like quiet your brain and listen. 4 things that you can see, and it's like really tapping into those senses. 3 things that you can smell, and just like really kind of, it just calms your nervous
I
system.
love that.
And then it literally brings you back to that prefrontal cortex where you can
Yeah,
have more problem solving and a conversation. So that's a really nice tip for parents and
that's
teachers. I
awesome.
actually do that with kids often.
And the
During
two would be touch. Is that
So,
right?
yep, the 2
And
would be touch, and then the 1 is taste, and sometimes that's a funny one. Um,
yeah,
sometimes if I can catch it fast enough, I will, bring like a mint or something
sure,
and
sure. Or
uh,
maybe there's the leftover coffee that you
yeah,
had
there
an
you go.
hour earlier. Yeah. Yeah, I love that tool. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah. And I would love to chime in a little bit on what you just said. You just opened up like so many thoughts for me. I love that behavior is communication. I think that's so powerful. And can we talk about, I think one of the big things, we'll see sometimes physical symptoms like a stomach ache. If every day there's a stomach ache before school, it is likely not a gut related problem so much as the gut brain axis. The anxiety from the brain is communicating with the nervous system in the gut. So um anything you want to add to that thought?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's actually what you do for a living is so much of what our mental state is and emotional state is really does affect our bodies. And I've like I will say sadly because you feel so, bad for them, but there have been kids that are vomiting, physically
Yeah.
vomiting because they
Oh.
have so much anxiety. And yeah, we pay attention to that too. Like if there's a kid
Mhm.
always coming down to the nurse, at a
Yeah.
certain time, or my
Mhm.
tummy hurts, again, validating that because
Sure.
it's really probably true. Um,
Yes.
but then, leaning into like, is it at the same time every day? Does it happen, with parents before bedtime?
Mhm.
And then just kind of navigating what's around that,
Yes. Yes.
and then giving those tips and tricks to
Mhm.
kids, but making them feel emotionally safe too. We talk a lot
Yeah.
about too with my teachers, and because it's harder than ever to be in education right now. There's a lot of teacher
Absolutely.
burnout,
Yes. Yes.
just because things are different, right? But I always say too, a regulated adult can regulate children, and it's actually science. um, the leader in the space, so that's the teacher in the space, really can share that co-regulation
Yes.
with
Yes.
their classroom, good or bad. So if we're dysregulated, it can dysregulate kiddos,
Yeah.
but we as the grown-ups are regulated, we can, really help with that. And we're human, right? As
Yes.
moms,
Yes.
as people, sometimes you're just like,
We're not regulated 24/7, that's for
yes.
sure. Yeah.
So I love even the title of your podcast is often we talk about pressing pause for ourselves. And so there's
Mm.
been times at home where I've had to even tell my kiddos, guys, I need to press pause for a minute because I need to get my mind right. So I can then step up and help you because my body is right now feeling just a little frustrated or dysregulated. So
Yes.
just give me a minute. And that
Wow.
feels weird actually, right? Like
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
parent to say
To
like,
admit that you're not perfect or
yeah,
superhuman. Yeah.
yeah.
That's
We even do a
amazing.
tap in, tap out thing here at my school where, sometimes teachers just need a minute. And so they can either tap out one with a student, because sometimes you need to have that connection with a conversation
Mhm.
with a student,
Mhm.
or I'll pop into their room, they'll pop out and just go to the restroom, get a cold
Yeah.
drink of water that,
Yes.
resets your nervous system. Um, but Yeah,
That's lovely. I
there's a
love
lot
that.
of power in that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Gosh, I think any teacher in your building is really very, very lucky. But I want to circle back to validation because that is so powerful. And I like to tap on after validation is empathy,
Mm,
and just so validating. Yes, this is an emotion you're feeling, and every emotion there's space for it, right?
mhm,
No emotion is wrong.
right.
Every emotion you're having is appropriate. Now and it makes sense, especially at the beginning of the school year. It makes sense that you feel scared or overwhelmed or your stomach hurts. And let me I'm sorry that you're feeling that way. Let's think about that, or whatever you want to do next. But that alone, that, like you said, that's sharing our regulated nervous system with the other person we're speaking to, so that they can then calm down a little bit. I think there's a term called mirror neurons, meaning that what you're watching or who you're looking at, you can actually mirror back their nervous system space, which is lovely. Yeah. And the I think the other thing I just want to say super quickly, this is something I had to learn. And honestly, I've only learned it in the past couple years, but that was to be okay when my kids were not.
Mm, mhm.
Because like it my so much of my identity was wrapped up into like my job to make sure my kids are okay. And while for sure, like, I have to keep them safe, and but to the sometimes they are going to go through struggles, and they're going to have a hard time, and I have to be able to witness them without it triggering me, you
Yes.
know? And that's actually where my power can come in the most. If I can be calm and grounded and they're not feeling well, they're going to start to calm and ground, and start to circle back to where I am. I don't know if you want to share anything around that.
Absolutely, they're borrowing that from you. In fact, you can talk more about this and you lean into it. Is I also read that it's like it's physical, like almost like pheromones. Like
Hmm.
that regulation is even shared in that sense. And so it's like
Yes.
that energy, you can feel it. And I described it to my teachers. I was like, you can't see pheromones, but like walk into any fifth grade classroom after recess, you can smell it. So it's the same thing with that regulation,
Yes,
just
yes.
invisible. Um,
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it. There's an energy there. There's a vibration, and we are literally energetic beings. We can't see it, So a lot of people poo-poo it, or they don't want to think about it, but we have, like, around us a 6-foot radius of the energy coming from our heart can go 6 feet around our body. And it's actually what is measured when we do an EKG. They put the stickers on your chest, that they're measuring energy from your heart. We can do an EEG of the brain and measure the energy. This is something that can be measured, and it can absolutely be felt. I think we have all walked into a room where somebody's in a bad mood and you're like, whoa, like they
yeah,
didn't even say anything. They didn't even
yes,
look at you, but you already know. And so
yes,
I think that's exactly
yeah,
what you're referring to. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And there's that science that the leader in the space has the most effect. So I always have to remind myself that, like, being the leader here, I have that effect on my teachers and the
Yes.
teachers that are the leaders in their classrooms. As parents, we have that effect on our kids.
Yes.
And again, that's not saying you can't be human, but that's
Sure.
just,
Sure.
that can be like another get to statement. I get to
Yeah.
have this energy that I get to bring to a space, and share, but then acknowledge, like, acknowledging, hey, you know what, I wasn't my best self in that moment, and I'm
Yeah.
really sorry, and move on and move forward. But yeah, that
Yeah.
validating and that empathy piece too,
Hmm.
is really, really important.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So let's circle back to teachers just a little bit, because teachers really are burning out, like you said, at a really fast rate. Being a teacher, I think, especially post COVID, everything's just so much harder. And this is a big transition for a teacher too, who likely wasn't working over the summer and got to rest and really enjoy, like, quiet mornings and all of that. And that's going to change. So, what do you wish maybe parents understood about the first few weeks of school from a teacher's perspective? And do you have any words of wisdom for a teacher?
Oh, I love that. Yeah, I mean, that's a blessing in our field is we do get time to, just relax and reset and, come down because again, back to that regulation, when you are working with students all day long and you have 25 to 30, different energies coming at you, that's a lot to regulate and do all those great things. So that time is really nice. But going back, I do think that people really like getting back into a routine. It might take a minute setting your alarm a little bit earlier, but just getting back, I always suggest to teachers, like before you actually have to go back, start getting, and parents, start getting that timing, like get your
Hmm.
kids up at the time that they have to get up, like that week or two before. And even if they're just, hanging out, just get their circadian rhythm,
Yes.
back. Cause I know my teenager, I went home for lunch the other day and it was like noon and I was like, get out of bed. Please.
Definitely,
Um,
definitely.
but yeah, that rhythm and space. And then just, I mean, fear and excitement come from the same space, right? And like, it has like more the same that energy, but
Yeah.
just also, there's that thing, that neuroplasticity where, what you repeatedly say, do, and even like we talk to ourselves more, right, than we talk to
Yes.
anyone else.
Yes.
And so making sure that narrative in your brain is positive because it really paves that path. I give the analogy of like a deer in the woods. Like the more they run that path, the more the grass is pressed down and it's like a solid path for them. But when they first, might start, you're getting through all the weeds and it's a little bit
Yeah.
trickier. Um, or just like, sledding for kids. Like the first time you
Sure.
get on that hill, it's like you might hit a couple bumps, not as fast, but then if you go down it more, you're just flying. So that's the same thing as with our brains and that neural
Yeah.
pathway. So just even repeating like affirmation statements, I can statements. I really like I used to take a dry erase marker for my daughter on her mirror and just write a couple affirmation statements so she could see it and read it and look at it and just, start that positive thinking. So,
I really love that. Yes. And what a great description of neuroplasticity. I love that, the deer in the path or the sled, like that. Those are literally the pathways in our brain and how we can make them super easy to go down if we use them over and over again. So let's shift from the super easy, maybe negative thoughts, and start to maybe put in some I can statements or affirmations. You'll start to pave a new way. And it literally, neuroplasticity is something that is available to all of us until the day we die. So we used to think the brain was done. Like once it stops growing, you couldn't change it. And now we know the science is, it's newer, but the science is showing us until you take your last breath on earth, you can reshape your brain. So that's awesome. You mentioned routines, which I want to tap into for just a second more too, because I teach a lot that our bodies love rhythm and predictability. And when your body knows what's coming at what time of day, it feels safe. You
yes.
know,
Yeah.
if it knows I eat breakfast at this time, I'm going to get dinner at this time, I know I go to bed at this time, it feels safe. And also, all of the systems, so the hormonal system, the digestive system, the immune system, they all work so much better and more optimally when we do have that rhythm, that predictability. And then, before you know it, 10 minutes before your meal, your digestive enzymes are kicking in because it knows, here we go, we're about to eat. So I love that. I think routines are so powerful. Just once we have a routine, there's much less decision to
Mhm.
be made, right? So the decision fatigue is a real thing. And we're only going to make the good decisions so many times. And then by the end of the day, we're like, oh, motivation is gone, whatever. It's harder. But if you have these routines, it's like, oh, I'm not even thinking about the fact that I always take my walk after dinner because it's just a routine. I don't even
Yeah.
have to decide. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I think that's really important for kids too. We talk about, um, be sticking to your routines in school and having that routine because it's predictable, right? And kids like that predictability. And then that helps you learn. Because if you are someone that doesn't have a great routine, the kids are all, if they're always like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Again, they're not feeling, safe. And
Yes.
so that prefrontal cortex of that learning piece
Hmm.
isn't as solid as when you're like, oh, I know that, after math, we transition to the carpet and then we go back to our seats. And then we,
Yeah.
just that kind of like flow and routine of the school
Yeah.
day is really important too.
It sounds so simple that I think it's almost people almost dismiss it or think it's silly, but literally to know that after this we go do this, then it's really helpful. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Yeah.
You have so many wonderful practices that you've been sharing with us already, but one of the practices that you do if for yourself and for your school is to choose one word. I would love for you to tell us about that.
Oh, I am so into the one word. Um, I actually got this from John Gordon. He has a whole book on the one word, but I also read a book called The One Thing, and it really
Mm.
just talks about when you are focusing on one thing, a lot of things just get done easier, and you're not spread so thin. And so every year, our school has a one word, and we theme around really lean into it and let it drive all the things we do. And so, actually, my one word for the school year this year is connect. And I just think more than ever before, we need to connect as humans.
Yes.
Um, and just really make those relational connections, but also connecting all the learning that we're doing, connecting the curriculum with the relationships, connecting with our community, connecting better with our parents. So all of our goals that we're planning on doing anyway just get to kind of revolve around that
Love that.
theme. And then it makes learning too fun for me and my staff as well. But then it's also predictable, right? They know
Mm.
that at some point, something's going to come back to, we're connecting something to some area. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's a powerful thing too. And then in January as a staff, so like for the actual new year, we always choose one words for our own selves. So this year, my personal word is hope, and just let that drive our years. But also we share them with each other, so we can kind of just embrace each other's words. And it's another way to connect with one another and really kind of learn more about someone personally.
I just love that. If someone listening wanted to choose a word for maybe just even this fall, do you have any tips or how do you decide?
Yeah, that's really good. Like like when you introduced me, you mentioned I'm a pretty prayerful person, so I do like to usually, pray about it and ask God,
Yeah.
what is it that you are wanting me to do? But write down things like I feel like journaling sometimes, or looking if you do journal, kind of looking back through, and you might kind of feel like a theme of something you might need. Really kind of taking that temperature of your life and space, or something that you're like, what I need to get better at being creative. And so letting that word drive your year. Um, I think just, making sure it's personal and it's something that can help you be the better version of you.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I would, not a shameless plug for the podcast, but I would say pushing pause will help you come up with that word, right? So it's not, this isn't something that goes on your to-do list. Oh, I got to think up my word, but we actually just want to like pull away from life for a minute to see what might come. What is maybe our soul wanting our word to be instead of our mind, like our minds are they're on it 24/7, 365, like they never stop. And while they're so powerful and helpful, they often can override our own listening to our intuition or our what our soul is trying to say to us. So I think getting quiet and for me, journaling is a really good way to push pause and kind of hear what's going on in a little deeper level.
Yeah, I love that. In fact, four of my teachers, one word last year was pause.
Awesome, awesome,
So you're
awesome.
you're right there. And that's another good point, is even you can make your word too a part of that self-care journey, because I think sometimes people feel that self-care is selfish. And it's the exact opposite. And that's also what I lean into a lot with my teachers. In fact, I even kind of refer to it as soul care because it's more than like a bubble bath, even
Yes.
though those are so relaxing. Um, but it's really making sure you're checking in with yourself. I actually use an acronym for that, and I've taught it to my teachers, and it's the acronym NESTS. So think of like birds making their nests, making that
Okay.
foundation, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so then each one stands for something. So N stands for nutrition, E stands for exercise, S stands for sleep, T stands for time, and then the last S stands for support. And so, what I'll do if I'm kind of just feeling off is I will rate myself. I'll be like, hey, I actually need to check in with my nests. And I'll kind of rate myself. And, sometimes, especially in the summer, I would find like, oh, my nutrition is a little off, probably even like a little bit too much ice cream. And it's not about the diet, right? It's
Right.
about
No,
just
no, no.
a healthier version of yourself. And again, that exercise is not about, if you're not a workout person, that's totally fine. It's more about just moving your body, getting like if you sit at a desk all day, or if you're just more likely to, be still, getting up, standing up, moving around. Sleep is so important. I've been leaning in so much on sleep. In fact, my husband, I have the temperature down to 65 because that's the
Love
scientific
that.
temperature to
Love
sleep
that.
in. He's like, oh, our bill this summer.
That's hard to do, but yes, that's lovely. Yeah.
But yeah, just kind of, checking in on yourselves there. That time really leaning into like, how am I spending my time? I think there's so many people nowadays that get stuck in that doom scrolling, and you're spending so much time on your phone or
Yes.
technology, and we're not being as creative anymore. And so just kind of saying like, oh, am I spending too much time just and we all get trapped in it, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
but just kind of evaluating that, and then that support, like we were built for connection, and that's so important to find people that you can lean on, and that you can connect with, and have a cup of coffee with, laugh with, cry with.
Hmm.
So that's something that I love personally, and that really helps me. And I've taught that to my teachers too, because they are people, and
Yes.
I love to see them as people, and they are phenomenal professionals. But again, that whole, if they're dysregulated, then
Hmm.
the kids aren't as
Yes.
regulated. So that's really important.
I love that so much. You've given us a little acronym so we can remember. I'm going to call it our soul care check-in. I love what you said. So, maybe even I'm envisioning possibly maybe once a week on a Sunday, as you're planning your week, you kind of check in with that nest, or even at the beginning of a new month, like, hey, where am I? Has my nutrition fallen off, or did I forget about my time management? I really am not trying to pick up my phone first thing in the morning. Let me get
Yeah.
back on that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I
Um,
love that.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Um, yeah, and so one as we talk about the word, and one of the things, kind of a theme that I've been leaning into for this fall, and I would say it's probably my word for this season, is intentionality, or being intentional. Because when things get busy, as the beginning of a new school year is always kind of chaotic, and there's so much change and so much to do and paperwork and all the things, it's so easy to get swept up, and you're just kind of, somebody else or something else is determining your day and your life. And if we're not intentional about what we want to create, then we're being, we're stuck in that reactive mode, so to speak, and just trying to keep our head above the water. So in doing and thinking about that term of intentionality, I would love to talk a little bit about how can we design this season intentionally, so that as school starts, sports begin, calendars fill up, how do you see a family being able to be maybe more intentional?
I love that. I start the intentionality with my staff in a certain way. So it would cross over for, a family is I always ask three questions. Where are we? So just checking in with yourself right now. where are we as a family? Where are we, as a school? Where are we going and how are we going to get there? So that intention of, okay, what is, sitting down and planning on where's this journey taking us? Like, what does this week look like? Being intentional. I know as a busy mom, I have a college student, a high school student, an 11-year-old, and my husband's also in education, and there's sports, and like,
Yeah.
I mean, you could just throw it all in the air and let it fall, and sometimes it does. But we have to be really intentional about. My husband and I have a calendar check on Sundays, and we talk through the week. I'll meal prep. Um, just having those, like, who's going where,
Love it.
just having that laid out ahead of time. I even talk about that with kids and parents for school. So like a lot of people are like, oh, we're so rushed in the morning, I'm so sorry we're late. If you just have like that routine in the morning, but also if you know that you're just not that morning person, have all your clothes laid out the night before. Be intentional. Are you packing lunch? Are you buying lunch? If you're packing, you can pack so much of the stuff the night before.
Yes.
Just that intention and preparation for what you're going to do. And then the how do we do it is also like for kids too. I always, in the teachers, I'll always say, who's doing the work? Because sometimes our teachers are so empathetic, right? You never want a kid to struggle.
Yeah.
Um, but when we do everything for our kids, it's actually taking power from them, and it's also
Yeah.
taking self-esteem from them, because it's basically showing or telling them like, oh, I don't think you can do it. So setting them up for success, and just giving them, like, steps and directions, and then praising them for it. And so that's, I feel like, really, those are really
I
important
love
and
that.
just helpful steps.
Yeah. And being okay with the struggle because the growth is in the struggle,
Yes.
right? Now
Yeah.
there's a point where we don't, we only have them let them struggle so long on their own, but in the normal learning process, there should be a little bit of struggle there and
Yeah.
then they grow. Yeah. Yeah.
It just, I mean, my son turned 16, so all I can think about is like when you learn to drive a car, right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
have to like learn to, all the rules. And then that first time you get in the car, this with your kid, you're like, okay, here we go. But, and
Yeah.
there's, a little struggles here and there. Oops, you didn't stop long enough at that stop sign.
Yeah.
And I think you can back that up to like little kiddos when you're asking them
Mhm.
to, put their clothes away. It might look like a jumbled mess,
Yes.
but giving them that agency, I think, is really important.
Yes, yes. I love the term. The term agency is one of my favorites and kind of goes hand in hand with personal power. I see it so much in the healthcare world that our agency is given away to a medicine, a doctor, a test, the system. Really, we have so much power within ourselves, but we need to remember it, and to lean into it. Yeah.
That's why my one word is actually hope. We dug into the science of hope last year, and it's not just wishful thinking. Hope is a goal, a pathway, and an agency. And so it's been really awesome, for our students to say, okay, what's our learning goal, or what's the goal for this kiddo emotionally, socially, whatever, that is, and what's the pathway? Like, how can we, make have them have access, right? But then that self agency is huge, like getting kids to believe in themselves, and really creating that. And I do think that's changed a lot. That's one of the, I know you started off asking me in the 20 years, how do I feel things have
Yeah.
changed? I do think that kids aren't as confident and they don't have as much agency, and as they used to.
Mhm.
Um, and I also, some of those things, I could talk about this forever, but, just the more technology, like they could be quiet as a mouse, but those dopamine hits that
Oh,
are hitting their brains,
yes.
video games, or every time they're switching their reels, like it's crazy. Kids 20 years ago could sit and listen to an entire book and be just engaged and in awe. And we really have to build up the sustainability
Mhm.
for a lot of kiddos to just sit for that amount of time,
Yes.
because their brains are so used to switching. And same thing with nutrition. Like I those dopamine hits with a lot of sugar
Yes.
or a lot of those like Takis, like hot stuff. All of those things like, give them those dopamine hits, but then you
Yeah.
get that crash. And so I know the kids probably don't love me that much, but I pulled a lot of the sugar breakfast stuff out of our
Good for
cafeteria,
you. Yes.
more like protein, like breakfast sandwiches, just because nutrition affects your learning
Yes.
so much. Again,
Wow.
you acknowledge that gut brain health is
Yes.
just amazing.
That way to go, because I feel like that probably wasn't easy to get to be able to pull some of those things out. So that's impressive. Yeah, you're so right that the kids need a solid start to their day. But I don't know if you've heard the term like fast dopamine and slow dopamine.
Tell me.
But so the you're talking about those quick hits like the TikToks or the video game like and the sweets and things. Those give us like a very quick hit of dopamine. It feels good, but it doesn't last. There's no sustaining of that.
Yes.
And slow dopamine is where we would love people to kind of circle back around to. And that's like, being in nature or getting a hug, a really good hug, like some of these more natural ways of stimulating our dopamine, getting a good feeling, but it's not like that short lived, now I'm looking for more.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's to me, like seeing the sunset
Mm,
is like, wow, like that's better than some of these faster things, but the more we see and are exposed to the fast things, then the more we're gravitating towards. So yeah, I love trying to redirect a little bit, not that there's kids aren't going to play video games ever or never eat sugar, but just kind of trying to have a balance between that makes a lot of
absolutely.
sense.
And hear me say, my boys play video games and they eat
Yeah,
sugar.
so do mine. You got to live in the real world too, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes. Just the
yeah.
balance, right?
Yeah. And I think a lot of education can go a long way, too. So if, my kid's eating something that they seem to not be able to put down, I'll say, read the ingredient list. What do you think in there is and like, let's talk about this. There are words on there that I can't pronounce. I wonder how your body, what your body thinks of those and just have a conversation. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
having them, educate themselves behind it. I'm
Yeah.
gonna definitely use that. That's a
Yeah.
really
Yeah. As kids get older into teen years, you can't really force them to do all the things you want them to do, but you can try to teach them how to make good decisions for themselves. So yeah, I love that. So we hear a lot. This is a topic I know you feel pretty strongly about. We hear a lot about gratitude, but sometimes I think it's just overlooked as it's too simple, or how's that really going to help. But from both a neuroscience perspective and your own experience, why do you think gratitude actually matters so much?
ugh, I love gratitude and it truly, truly, again, probably a slow dopamine,
Mm-hmm.
but it really, really changes your brain, that heart space. And it's interesting because I have been into it a lot and then I kind of fell out of it. My mom passed away almost a year ago, September, and I kind of fell out of that practice. And I was just kind of in this like rut. I'm like, what's wrong with me? And my husband was even like, are you doing your gratitude journal? And I was like, no, I'm not. And so I really found that what you focus on, you see, right? And so
Yes.
like it's so true. Like I do this experiment with my teachers. I will say, okay, everyone look around the room and find something blue. Blue, 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 right? Close your eyes and don't open them. And now tell me all the things you found that were blue. And they're calling out all the things in the room that they saw were blue. And then I'll say, okay, keep your eyes closed. Now tell me something that was green. And it's like, no,
They can't do it.
on blue, right? And so I feel like that's how gratitude is when you're
Yes.
writing what you're grateful for, then your brain starts looking for it. And
Mm,
so throughout the day, what are the things that are, powerful and positive and what am I grateful for? And then it just starts really changing like your overall energy and like I said, your heart space, and what you see and I think it can be powerful in so many ways. And that's not toxic positivity, right? It's not saying
no.
that you can't feel your feelings when you're going through grief or
Mm-hmm.
if things are happening. But if you can start looking for gratitude inside even any of that, it's just incredibly powerful. So gratitude journals, there's this really cool app that one of my teachers introduced to me. And so my family of five, we do it every day. It also is like shared with like the community. There's like a community, so you can create your own groups basically.
Okay.
It's Gratitude Plus. I can share
Okay.
it with you.
I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, but it's like we share our three gratitudes every day and you can add a picture to it. And it's so fun to see, what my husband's grateful for, what my daughter, especially when she goes, back to college, what
I
she's
love
grateful
that.
for in the day. Yeah. And it's good conversational pieces too, right?
Yeah.
So when I get home, I can be like, oh, buddy, I saw that you were grateful for, I don't know, something that you did in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just
That's
starts,
awesome.
yeah, sparks conversation.
I really, really love that. And so gratitude, I feel like you're exactly right. I love that what you said about the colors and like what we look for. That is, there's a part of our brain called the reticular activating system that is our focus. And it is really good and actually quite designed to focus on keeping us safe. So looking for negative, right? Because if there is a lion approaching and the olden days and we're about to get pounced on, we need to know.
Yeah.
So our brain is literally scanning. This reticular activating system is looking for danger at all the time. Well, nowadays we live in safe environments. We don't need to worry about the lion approaching, but it still is trained to look for the negative. So using something like a gratitude practice starts to teach the reticular activating system to look for and focus on the good. And there is actually, it's not creating good, but there's already good there. We just weren't seeing it. We weren't seeing it because we were looking the other direction. So I love that. I have a gratitude practice. I journal every morning and well, like not every single morning, 90% of the time, it starts my day off so well. And at the end of whatever I just am dumping in my journal, I have this practice called a rampage of appreciation. And for like 3 minutes, I just dump everything I could think of that I'm appreciating. I read about it once and I was like, this is a cool practice.
I
Like
love that.
not just being grateful, but like a rampage of
Yeah.
gratitude, right? Or appreciation. And it's wild to see like when you do start, sometimes it's the obvious things that keep coming up, my kids and my home and,
Yes.
my health. But then you start getting to, well, gosh, I love this beautiful plant and, or the smell of the breeze this morning, like just, it just really helps that reticular activating system circle back around and start to look for all the beauty that we're surrounded by. So, yeah.
And Todd, you were asking about intention. I think that's a great intention also to start your day off well, is
Yes.
starting with that gratitude. And it actually made me giggle when you talked about the specifics, as I remember one morning, um, it was raining really hard and I was driving to work and my husband had just changed my wiper blades. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful for the wiper blades because you could
Yeah.
just so much better. And I was like, okay, now I'm really getting, I'm really
Now getting into the nitty gritty here.
getting
I love that.
yeah.
I think there's one more story I'd love to share that I read about. That if there's this imaginary little perfect town. So like perfect town USA, and everything is exactly the way you want it. It's beautiful. The weather's just right. There's no crime. The people there are wonderful, but there's a big pothole on Main Street. And the interesting thing is that everybody that lives in that town, they just keep talking about the pothole on Main Street, you know? And it's the focus like at the dinner table and oh, we got to go take a different route. Watch out for that pothole. And I think that's so true of our lives and our society and like obviously there are terrible things happening in the world. There are wars, famine, terrible political unrest, not to discount all of that, but instead of always focusing on the potholes, can we focus on the rest of it?
Yes.
Yeah. Pray for
I
the potholes and
There
focus
you
on
go.
the good.
Yeah, it's also like that what's in your control. I think about control, influence, and then what you can just, you have to accept, but like
Mm.
what is in your control is your attitude and actions and words. And then you have that influential box too, where, things like that are bigger in our world. But those little, those small things can really make a difference. And yeah, that goes into that gratitude piece for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So let's see. I think we're coming up to be wrapping up here soon. I wonder if um I'm just looking at my last piece. Do you have anything else that you wanted to? I know you have some notes and some topics that you wanted to cover. Is there anything that you'd like to share or circle back to?
Um, I just, first of all, I'm really, speaking of gratitude, I'm really grateful for you asking to be on here. I just look up to you so much, and you have really helped me as a person so much. So thank you for
You're
this.
welcome.
I think I just really would encourage people to give themselves permission to slow down, permission to connect, permission to care for themselves. Um, the small things matter. Go outside, take a walk,
Mm.
um, enjoy. We, it's where we so, our society lives so much in the past and the future, and we forget to be right now in the now. Um, I heard, you might have said this too. Someone told me, be where your feet are. And so that is something that is really powerful, but just encouraging people, put your phone away at dinner, have conversations, with your kids. Cause as you and I know, gosh, they grow up and leave faster
Oh, yes.
than you want them to. Look people in the eyes and just try to find, that joy um, in,
And
in
that
living.
connection.
Yeah. And that connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so beautiful. Kate, you're such an inspiration. Like really, I think it's my pleasure to have you and my blessing to have you on the podcast to share your hope, your joy, your energy with my audience. Would love, love, love to have you back. And I think I would love to say that, sort of as a closing too, is that, let's remember that the goal isn't to have a perfect school year, but the goal is to create maybe a rhythm that supports your family so that everybody can do their best with this school year. And yeah, I do have one last question for you. Since this is the Push Pause to Heal podcast, I'd love to ask you, as life is speeding up as it always does, how do we make sure we don't lose ourselves in the process? Like, do you have any favorite ways to push pause?
Yes. Like I said, make sure it's not selfish to have that self care and that soul care. It makes you, show it, for me, it makes me show up as the best version of who I am. I personally am a morning person. And so I get up every morning and I have that quiet time. I love brewing my cup of coffee. I have a Bible study I do, I journal. I make sure first thing in the morning that my eyes see the sunlight. So when it's nice out, especially, I'll
Yes.
go and even have my coffee on the front porch and just listen to, the sounds of nature and just really have that quiet, connected time um, before my day gets going and rolling.
I
But
love it.
that helps me be a lot more regulated and
Yes.
get into the day. And then also whether I have time in the morning or after work, I always try to move my body in some way.
Mm, that's
So
excellent.
that's really important for me.
Yes.
Well,
That's excellent. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you so much. And I would say to the listeners, if today's podcast resonated with you, please help us to share the power of creating a healthy fall transition with other parents, teachers, or friends in your life who might benefit from this conversation. Kate has shared so many little nuggets and pearls of wisdom. And I'd also love it if you could subscribe or leave us a review so we can reach even more listeners with the message of hope and connection and intentionality. So thank you so much, Kate.
thank you, Dr. Emily.